Humans have this incomprehensible tendency to believe in things that make absolutely no sense and disbelieve things that make perfect sense. Ever since I started questioning the validity of the information I was forced to acquire while going through the educational system, it became apparent that humanity is lost in the ocean of auto-generated ocean of cluelessness resulting noise. You see, humans are not good at logically disassembling elements of their reality, and there are truths staring us in the face that are collectively rejected by majority of us despite their obvious validity. The subject of death is a perfect example of this bizarre phenomena among many. Reincarnation is a scientific fact that should be taught at schools. Why do I say this? I will use my favorite black swan fallacy theory to explain it. It goes like this. If you make a statement, all swans are white, it will be true until you find one black swan. No matter how many millions of white swans you take into account, as soon as you confirm the existence of a single black swan, the statement, swans are white, is no longer true. In the same way, the statement, there is no life after death, is true until you can confirm one instance of reincarnation. And today, we have not one, but thousands of accounts of people credibly describing past lives, thus making our initial statement invalid. There is so much overwhelmingly logical evidence available to us that we can now safely say that life after death is no longer a domain of religious beliefs, but a fact. But for some bizarre reason, those in power work very hard to discredit this information and to make sure that our idea of life is limited to us being a random, insignificant speck of dust in an apparently endless universe. The amount of energy the establishment puts into censorship, misinformation, ignoring and ridiculing the truth not only exposes their hidden agenda, but also proves that afterlife is real, and it indicates that it is important and relevant to all of us. I want to present to you two stories from people who crossed to the other side, and I will start from a personal story that started my interest in this subject. I will tell you about what dying feels like according to my mom, who experienced a near-death episode almost 30 years ago. In the 90s, my mom had an operation on her enlarged thyroid, and the next day she went through something called a thyroid storm. Her body temperature went up rapidly to 106 degrees Fahrenheit or 41 degrees Celsius. Her heart rate went down to a life-threatening level and she started trembling uncontrollably. She said that every cut and incision on her body became incredibly painful, and after a few moments of being in intense pain, she decided that it was too much and that she was too tired and wanted to fall asleep. You need to know that only 50% of people survive the thyroid storm, and it is a very dangerous condition. When she fell asleep, she said that she felt huge and overwhelming sense of relief. Nothing hurt anymore, and although at that point she was already unconscious, she started floating over her body and saw doctors running towards her with equipment as she was listening to their conversations. She was now high above everybody looking at the doctors connecting her to the machine. She said that she saw everything although she wasn't using her eyes anymore. It was a relaxed and emotionally detached moment of curiosity with no other sensations. She said, dying doesn't hurt, but the worst is the realization of dying, the fear of the unknown, and when you don't know what is happening to you. And all of this is suddenly replaced by a huge sense of relief. Everything is in order and it's an ecstatic state of mind, almost as if you were on psychedelics. She then lost consciousness and woke up when it was dark outside a few hours later with a nurse sitting next to her. Her story contains the same elements described by almost all of near-death experience survivors, and I will talk about it more in a moment. When I learned about what happened to her, I decided to read a book my mom got by Raymond Moody called Life After Life. We were still in the age of books and newspapers, and there was no digital media, and this pretty much was the only source of information on near-death experiences. This American psychologist analyzed NDE reports from people around the world from all walks of life who died and came back to life, and he found out that irrespectively of their geographical location, their level of education, and social status, all these stories consisted of the same supernatural elements and described the same process of leaving our reality. I was fascinated by it and I wanted to know more. Once the internet emerged, it turned out that a lot of people have the same story to tell. One of the most famous cases is that of a 5-year-old Scottish boy named Cameron Macaulay from Glasgow who described his previous life on a small island 200 miles away. He confirmed all the details related to the life of a man who had passed away a few years before his birth, and this story was confirmed by the man's family. Another story is that of Luke Ruhlman from Ohio in America, who used to be a woman from Chicago named Pamela Robinson, who had died in a hotel fire in 1993. In Myanmar, there are more than 750 cases of children who claim to remember a previous life, and 24 of them said they had been World War II Japanese soldiers. They would eat, dress, and behave like typical Japanese soldiers during their occupation of Myanmar. There's also something of an urban legend describing a boy who remembered his previous first and last name and the first and last name of his murderer. He remembered being killed by an axe blow to the head, which explained his red birthmark on his head in this life. He went with his parents to the village where he used to live, and he identified his murderer and found the place where his body was buried. One of the most credible cases is that of an American neurosurgeon who died and came back to life to write 3 books describing his experiences from a medical perspective. Ibn Alexander's story contains supernatural elements that validate his experience, like the fact that during his out-of-body journey he met his deceased birth sister he never knew. This is not the only author who wrote this type of books. There are Todd Burpo, Betty Eadie, Mary Neal, and others. YouTube and social media is filled with these stories, and one of my favorite YouTube channels is that of Anthony Shen, who travels around the world and interviews people who have had visited the other side. The link is in the video description, and I highly recommend you watch these videos. Some who approach this subject scientifically have discovered more interesting facts using scientific methods. Dr. Christopher Kerr interviewed 66 dying patients and found out that almost all of them had at least one vivid pre-death dream or vision about preparing to die, about deceased family members, or about those being left behind. It was also discovered that most people have some type of a dream, vision, or premonition announcing their death up to 2 years in advance of it actually happening. The implications of all of this are endless, and it points towards something much bigger than what we consider to be our limited physical existence. I want you to realize that this changes our understanding of life. It clearly proves that our existence is not Earth-based. It means our consciousness resides outside of this reality. This also indicates an existence of a governing entity or energy that controls this life and everything around us. This awareness should also have a profound effect on our irrational fear of dying. It seems we should replace it with a sense of patient curiosity. Reincarnation is now a scientific fact, proven over and over again to be a part of a supernatural journey, and it should not only change our view on ending this existence, but also on life itself and what is important. If you're repeating this existence here, it means there's a reason for it, and it would indicate that all of it might be about learning and gaining skills important to the existence of our true metaphysical selves. I would like you now to listen to the second NDE story, and it is that of Mallory Fennell, one of my viewers who sent me a description of what dying looks like. If you would like to hear more from Mallory, there's a link in the video description. I decided to include this story in this video as it is a bit different to most of the near-death experience stories that you can find. It shows a structured matrix behind our reality that was gradually being dismantled instead of the usual tunnel of light that souls go through. I think it tells us a lot about the true nature of this reality.
I was at a birthday party and I was in the ball pit, and I sink down to the bottom of the pit when I stop breathing, and nobody knows that I'm there. And so I wait and I wait, and I can't scream or make any noise or move, but I'm not concerned. I feel at peace. When I am retrieved from the ball pit, I'm brought out into the middle of the floor of the Chuck E. Cheese, and everything is dark, and the families are surrounding me and they're in shock. This is when I kind of just detached completely from the body and started paying more attention to my surroundings. And from the door, the darkness is like deleted because the ambulance, the paramedics, they come in through the front door, and it's like the light at the end of the tunnel. There's so much light. It brings me peace when they walk in the door. And these paramedics get the crowd of people to leave me alone, and they try to resuscitate me on the ground, and I can't do it. So they load me onto a gurney and they take me out to the ambulance. And this actually did happen. I did get a teddy bear that day. And in my memory of the event, I was given a teddy bear as well. But they're trying to save me. They're telling me that everything is going to be all right. They really were like angels, and for the longest time I thought that this was just my memory of it, but I know that this is a dream sequence. I know that when the body dies, the brain releases all of its DMT, and this is the chemical formation of light, DMT. So all of these beatific visions, all of these people who say they've seen God when they die, they're being honest. But each person's vision of God is unique as each person. So my vision of God was two handsome paramedics rescuing me from a Chuck E. Cheese. And as we are leaving the parking lot, there is just a city environment everywhere, so they're rushing and they're very worried and concerned, but I'm fine. I'm completely at peace. And as they start working on me with their machines, the machines start falling away. They don't exist anymore. I can't see them. Then the ambulance itself fades away, and we're like people floating down the highway. Then all the buildings fade away, the cars fade away, and the road fades away. And eventually, even the paramedics fade away. And I am alone in the middle of a field of wheat. And the wind is coming out around me in all directions. It feels like I am the source of wind, because everywhere I look, the wheat is blown down by massive gusts. It's just flattened and bending from the power of the wind in 360 degrees around me. I feel the presence of God. And then all in a sudden, the world comes back into focus. The world comes back into frame. And I get the teddy bear. And this was in the ambulance when the world came back into frame for me. Because even when you're resuscitated, this means you're breathing again. It doesn't mean you're conscious again. And so I still have that teddy bear that I got when I was 2 years old. And I will never forget the feeling of complete oneness that came from that moment I had with God, unburdened by previous notions or opinions, because I was an innocent child. I had no preconceptions. I had no judgments. I just was. And from that place, I felt connected. And it took so many years for me to find a connection on this earthly plane, because I didn't realize how deeply embedded our physical reality is with our spiritual reality.
If you have any stories regarding NDE, please get in touch or leave a comment. I would like to hear your story. Thank you for watching, and if these videos are important to you, please consider supporting this channel through Patreon, PayPal, CashApp, crypto, or bank transfer. Your help is important and much appreciated. Also, join me on Instagram at Peter Hedron. All links in the video description.